Hello and welcome to the Gang Culture Podcast, a series educating you about gang culture. Whether you're listening at home, school, or on the way to work, we hope you can enjoy listening and learn something to share with others. Welcome to today's episode, where we have a remarkable guest who brings a wealth of experience in criminal justice, community reintegration, and youth outreach. Joining us is a Reintegration Specialist at the Delaware Center for Justice, whose work is making a significant impact in Wilmington, Delaware. Officer Osha Hudson. Our guest studied behavioral sciences at Wilmington University and criminal justice at Strayer University. A proud graduate of Glasgow High School, she has deep roots in Wilmington, where she currently lives and works. Throughout her career, she has served in various roles, including a school resource officer, where she dealt with a variety of youth involved in gangs. Her commitment to community service is evident through her countless volunteer efforts at Neighborhood House, People's Settlement, and the Food Bank of Delaware. In August 2020, amidst the George Floyd protests, she took a significant step by becoming an officer at the 99th Wilmington Police Academy. As a member of the Wilmington Police Department, she continues to use her position to support youth in vulnerable and difficult situations, striving to end gang violence and promote positive change. Officer Hudson was a former probation officer turned school resource officer who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to our discussion on youth and gang culture. With a deep understanding of the structure of gangs, Officer Hudson sheds light on why these groups form and who is more likely to join their ranks. Drawing from her years of experience working directly with the youth in the community, she offers valuable insights into the factors that contribute to gang involvement and the challenges faced by young people caught up in these dynamics. Join us as we delve into the complexities of youth and gang culture with Officer Hudson, exploring the root causes, consequences, and potential solutions to this pressing issue.
Welcome to our podcast, Gang Culture, Myths and Realities, produced by The Cause. I'm your host, Orlando Foreman. Today we are blessed to have Officer Hudson today, who will share a little bit of her insight on the gang activity in Wilmington, Delaware. And let me introduce, without further ado, Officer Hudson. How you doing?
Good evening, Orlando. How are you?
Great. Would you like to tell our community where are you from?
I am born and raised. I am a Wilmingtonian, born right here in Wilmington, Delaware. I grew up on the east side of town for most of my childhood, and my mother was a staple in the community of Southbridge.
Great. Now, what do you do for work?
I am a Wilmington police officer, currently the status of corporal, and I'm a school resource officer for the community education building located downtown Wilmington, where I service approximately about 4 schools that are held within the building.
What led you to that specific line of work?
Actually, initially, upon returning to school to get my degree in behavioral science, I wanted to be a probation officer. And the reason I desired to be a probation officer is because I have 2 sisters. I only grew up with one, but I had a lot of cousins who were males, and I always wanted brothers. They made a few choices coming up, a few wrong choices, and I've watched specifically comes to the forefront of my mind 2 of them who have made wrong choices that landed them in prison, and they've come out and turned their whole world around. And that, to me, just being their support system while even being in jail, whether it was just to listen or to look out or send them something and see them come home and do a whole 360, was encouraging. And what I learned was a lot about the system as to how it was designed to kind of keep you. So my goal in wanting to become a probation officer was that I would always hear them talk about probation officers and how they it was so hard, and it was just like they never wanted them to get off. So I wanted to be the change. But kind of what people don't know is those positions, people stay in them forever. So while being in school, the position of an officer came up, and I was comparing the 2, and then my mind switched from I can help them once they come home, so I can help them before they go in.
Great, great. I just want to thank you once again, because to have you take your time out of your schedule and to be here to share with our youth, I believe is a very great thing. I think our youth needs to hear this side of the law. I'm a firm believer that we need law officers. However, officers normally get bad raps, but all officers aren't bad officers, just like all people aren't bad people. So I think it's very important that we expose our youth to understand that it's okay to talk to the officers. It's okay to allow them to know you. And so I want to thank you for taking your time out of your schedule to be a part of the cause, gang culture. So let me ask you a question. Why would you say a gang unit is necessary?
One thing, I mean, people look at Wilmington crime and they are amazed because we're so small. We have a population of roughly 70,000 people. So the amount of crime that takes place is what makes us look like, whoa, it's a bad place to be.
Right.
I'm not sure if you know or not, but our slogan is Wilmington is a place to be somebody. Some people would debate or, say not so. But our youth have been on the rise with wanting a sense of ownership or wanting a place to belong. And I can even venture to say that when I was growing up and I was the youth that we're talking about today, we really did have gangs. It was what is a gang? 3 or more people.
That's a good question.
So I remember coming up and we had the East Side Bad Girls and we had Hucklebuck. But what it was a sense of ownership. It wasn't so much with all the letters and initials. I won't, name a few, but we're all pretty much aware of them. And it seems as if the gangs that we have here in Wilmington are not so much designed for a sense of ownership or a place to belong, but it's this not so much reality that they're living or video games. People don't like to face it, but it almost seems like they're trying to emulate or imitate what's going on with things that are not reality.
Right. Well, what I would chime in on is that, from my knowledge, I think a lot of our youth fall into the lure of gang affiliation or gang activity because, like you said, they want a sense of belonging. And I think we all want to belong to something. And sometimes I just think it's maybe a lack of understanding maybe for some of our youth. We look at the history of gangs. Gangs basically were to protect your neighborhood. And I think somewhere as time changed and society kind of fast forwarded, the culture of the gang activity changed. Once drugs became a part of it, the violence came with that. Absolutely. So now gangs took a real bad black eye. And so we should always be mindful of that, So let me ask you this question. As an officer, is your approach to teens different than adults?
From a personal perspective, yes. I think in general, sometimes it's necessary not to be. I've done presentations within schools many of times, and it's safe to say that a lot of teams' perspectives is the same about an officer.
Yes.
If you go around the room, there's an icebreaker that we would do, and we would get, I say cat, you say dog. Now I say cop, you say, and you get the list. Pig, right. 12, all whatever derogatory name you can think of. So I think it's safe to say how people perceive things, but as an officer, it depends on what the call is.
Okay.
It's not so much, I'm, not going to approach. I've worked the streets prior to working in schools. I worked the riverside of town in Wilmington, which some of us know with the riverside.
Right. Reputation.
Yes. Thank you. That's the word I was reaching for. Reputation is. So I've been called to some teenage boys hanging out, looking suspicious, and let it be known that people will say, oh, they have guns, not even knowing that they have guns or not.
Right.
So how do I approach you if someone has said, you're thinking these are what the notes are relayed to you, that these teenagers are on a corner. I'm just one person and somebody has a gun.
So let me ask you this question. Recently, have you seen an influx of gang activity in Delaware?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And the activity is not even so much about a sense of ownership like we talked about, or who has money or who can sell the most drugs.
Right.
It's about I killed him for likes.
Wow.
Or he said something I didn't like on social media.
Yes.
So I have to get him before he gets me.
Wow.
It's I'm not sure that what they call the beef is even beef.
Right. And it's unfortunate that we're losing a lot of our youth to detention centers, incarceration, and worse, death. And it's very unfortunate. What, in your opinion, what youths are the most vulnerable to joining gangs?
So I think a lot of things that are overlooked are things like trauma.
Yes.
Things like children being touched inappropriately or being abused, or some household domestic issues that go on, or it could be homelessness.
Right.
Our house is not doing so well, and my mom doesn't care that I'm outside till 2-3 in the morning, so I end up staying over here, where it feels like someone cares.
Right. The sense of belonging, as we were talking about earlier. Yes. What are the main challenges that you find in law enforcement facing with dealing with gang-related violence?
Challenges are you never really know am I dealing with someone who has this trauma or, has some issues, and I should be that empathetic person that I love to be.
Yes.
Or am I dealing with someone that is just choosing to do something totally different and wants to harm me?
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, is what I also tell a lot of children is, I did choose to put this uniform on, but when I go into crowds of youth, it's first and foremost, I'll introduce myself as Officer Human.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, Officer Hudson. Because I don't go home at the end of my shift and hang up upside down in my locker. I go home to my child. Right. I go home to my sister. So we all have those things. So just like, you want to be approachable, or you want someone to treat you like a human. Right. We deserve the same.
So let me ask you a question. Do you have any young family members that you talk to from time to time in reference of gangs or just violence or just behavior by itself?
I do. Like I've seen my little cousin on social media, and he was doing something weird with his hands. Immediately, I'm on the phone like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, and it's like, oh no, it's nothing like that. Are we sure?
Right.
Because it's as simple as what I wear or how I wear my jacket.
Yes. That
sometimes identifies or associates you with
gang activity.
A gang activity.
Or the possibility of gang activity.
Or a possibility.
Yes.
Or, my profession does make me on high alert.
Yes.
I've never been that kind of helicopter mom, but I'm like, where are you going? Which way are you taking? Don't go that way.
Right.
Because things happen frequently there.
Right. And I think that's a good thing that you're proactive in their youth's lives. I think more parents should be hands-on approach where you're going, who are you with. We're living in a time right now where we can't take things for granted.
Right.
And
nobody definitely has to be in when the lights come on anymore.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
So those kind of things are unheard of. And, definitely what I tell our mentors, or just people that work with youth in general, is that I think what we're lacking a lot of is structure.
Right.
We loved it whether we knew it or not.
Yes.
There were rules and there were expectations, but a lot of times what you see is households that don't have requirements.
Right. Wow. Households with requirements. That's deep.
There's no requirement to
Accountability.
Yes, requirement, responsibility to do anything.
Right.
So that trickles into school. Why should I come here and do anything that you say?
Right.
And I had a teacher say something to me very profound. He said, we're expecting the children to come to school and be children, but at home they have to be adults.
Wow. And that's the bad times that we live in these days. You see a lot of kids going through those type of things. I agree with you. I don't think any child should have to carry themselves or be an adult away, in life, but that's unfortunate. So I've had the pleasure of having some interviews and hearing conversations of some youth, and a lot of them believe that the officers target them. They believe that that the officers don't understand the things they've been through or understand what their life at home is like. What would be your response, or what would you say to some of them? Or how does that make you feel also?
It's concerning because I actually have to do the job. So part of going into schools and giving presentations is what we help the youth understand is how officers are trained. A lot of times in these presentations, state police are present, county police are present, and it's myself. And what we help them understand is that it's not always just jumping out because you're standing on the corner.
Right.
I never realized how much people call the police. Like, you can say in your whole life you've called the police how many times? You can probably count that on one hand.
No doubt.
But people call the police, and it's not always a sense of like harassment. In addition to, what we tell the children is every police officer is trained to watch your hands.
Right.
People don't kill people. Hands kill people.
But what would you say to the youth who says, you don't understand where I come from? You don't know what my troubles are. You don't want to know what it's like not to have food in your refrigerator.
Well, we should have a conversation because you're assuming I don't know that.
True.
I'm born and raised right from here.
Okay.
And if anybody asks me, I grew up very poor.
Okay.
So, but my mother did the best that she could. And it was about the choices that I made. But they're right. You're not going to get every officer to empathize or do that. But what we also teach them is that if you choose to fight here and now,
right,
you're going to lose every time.
Okay.
Because then that gives that officer something to stick on you, or something to put on you, or a reason to even arrest you.
Right.
You have rights. You do have rights, because that's what our youth like to yell.
Right.
Well, I got a right. I can stand here. And when I was on the streets and working the streets, no, baby, you don't. Not under that no loitering sign.
Yes, that's serious.
To be aware is to be alive.
Right, right.
And if we're not aware of our actions, then our actions have consequences.
No doubt
One
about
of your
it.
words.
No doubt.
Our actions definitely have consequences. And with every officer is trained, we can't act. We can't react until you act.
Right, right.
So one thing I tell the youth is, don't give me a reason to react, because action is going to beat reaction every time.
Right. And it may not be the reaction that you want.
So if you believe I'm that scared cop, or that cop that just wants to jump out on you and do something to you, why would you give me a reason to believe that you may have a gun?
True.
I'm going to stand right here if I feel like I have a
So
right
let me ask you a
here.
question. In the school systems, do you have a lot of conversations and actions with the youth there? And do you have these type of conversations with them?
I do. A lot of youth come and ask me why, or, why do you carry a taser? Or why do you do this?
Right.
Or why do you do that? A lot of them want to know why. But what I try to convey to them most is that I'm human just like you.
Right.
I just chose to put on this uniform and help you. And a lot of what the community doesn't understand, the people that hate the police the most are the ones that call us the most.
Wow. I would never thought that.
I've been on the force for almost 5 years this March.
Okay.
And so I came on one of the most trying years, George Floyd. Wilmington had, I'm on the force with people that have been on the force for 20 years, and they said if that was their first year of policing,
They would have quit.
they would have quit.
Wow.
I've stood on the front line. There's a News Journal article with a girl this close to my face, and I just had to stand there and take it.
Right.
And she's the same color as me, telling me I'm everything but a child of God.
Right.
When all I'm trying to do is my job.
Right. And I can't even imagine being an officer, honestly. I know it's a lot of responsibilities, but I also know it's a lot of backlash, a lot of things that you have to deal with. And I guess at the end of the day, you have to be at peace within yourself to be the best self for others. You know what I mean? And so I applaud you for everything that you do for the community. I've seen your work. And so I just know it's not easy. And I always hope for your safety out there.
Appreciate you,
And
sir.
I appreciate what you do for our youth.
Thank you.
If there was anything that you would say to our youth, what would it be?
If you have to pick a gang or you need a sense of ownership or somewhere to belong, I am so ready for someone to start the I Dare to Be Great gang.
I like that. I like that.
Like, I dare you to do something different. I dare you to beat the odds.
Right.
Somebody somewhere along the line told you that this was your only choice.
Right.
But I dare you to make a different choice.
Right.
Be a leader.
Yes. And not a follower.
And not a follower.
No doubt about it. And if we had more leaders, we would have less problems, I believe. You know?
Absolutely.
The times when I do get to talk to the youth, I have a formula I always say: choices, decisions, and consequences. Live by those words. Understand those words. Embrace those words, and don't be scared of those words. You know, I would like to thank you for coming in today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and hopefully that some youth, you may have inspired them maybe to be an officer. Who knows? But I know that your door is always open, and if you youth ever see Officer Hudson, don't be afraid to say hello to her, have a conversation with her. I want to thank you for taking the time to be a part of Gang Culture, Myths and Reality, and it was a pleasure having you in.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
This has been the Gang Culture Podcast, brought to you by The Cause and produced by the youth of The Cause production crew. Produced by Scott Michaels and Dennis Finnecauer. Program manager is Darby Putney Vashis. Video and audio edited by Louis Navarrete. Hosted by Orlando Foreman. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for a new episode dropping next week. Please don't forget to leave us a review wherever you're listening.